Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and master certified life coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today's episode is all about giving yourself permission to play by being creative and why it's a great idea. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your master certified coach and midlife mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again for this week's episode, which is about giving yourself permission to play in midlife, why creativity is self-care in disguise. This episode is for you if you know that you want to be more creative but have a million reasons why you can't, or why you like being creative but don't find the time to prioritize it, that sort of thing. Of course, it's also for you if you're curious about creativity and just want to think about it a little bit more and how it might apply to you. And one more thing, if you label yourself as not creative or not artistic, this episode is definitely for you. So if any of these things sound like you, stay tuned. I am really excited to talk to you about this because I love this topic. And now that I've been working with midlife gals for about 10 years, I know how often it comes up with y'all as something that is especially relevant at this age and stage of life. Now, a couple of small things before we get going. First, I haven't mentioned this in years. In the podcast at the time of this recording, it's over 7.5 years old. I can't believe that. But I wanted to remind you that as a listener, if you haven't done so yet, I would love to invite you to leave a podcast review on iTunes. A 5-star rating and a review would be super appreciated, and it really does help other midlife gals discover and listen to the show. It also gives me incredibly insight into what you're thinking and appreciating about the content, so that I can continue to stay in touch with you and create more and more content that's relevant, stuff that makes you smile and stuff that makes you think. Remember, I'm sitting in my home office talking to myself, so it really helps. Now, the other thing I wanted to share that's podcast related is an invitation to join the podcast club. Have you heard about it? Do you even know that there's more podcast goodness just one click away? Well, there is. I host a group that's essentially a book club experience for the podcast. Every month, we take an episode that you've listened to a whole different level by talking about it together live on a Zoom call. You'll be in an intimate group with me and other listeners of the Women in the Middle podcast talking about an episode together, what your experience is with the topic and how to apply the key concepts to your life in a meaningful way. You'll get a 1-hour Zoom call, and there's a replay if you missed the live. You'll get a workbook that goes with the episode. You'll have a few laughs and connect with other like-minded midlife gals. And also, we'll have time together, you and me. It's super inexpensive, and once you sign up, you can quit anytime you want. The only thing missing is you. This is a great way to grow forward together. So head over to www.susierosenstein.com/podcast club to join us. Okay, now let's dive into this week's episode, Permission to Play in Midlife, Why Creativity is Self-Care in Disguise. Today, we're talking about something that might feel frivolous at first, but is actually essential for your well-being, creativity as self-care. Yep, we're giving ourselves permission to play. Let me repeat that because it might be a big topic. It might be a big idea. The idea today is that being creative can be considered self-care, and we're going to get into it so that you can give yourself more permission to play along. Think about it. Learning how to be present in a world that can feel like it's constantly vying for your attention is a skill that will unlock a new level of passion, clarity, and joy. Social media these days, oh my goodness, and constant distractions, they're everywhere. And it can actually make slowing down and focusing quite difficult. And I think you probably understand this. We talked about it recently in episode 399 about 3 ways to stop wasting time in midlife to regret-proof your life. So many distractions, so easy to waste time. But with creativity, there seems to be a block. You may not think of yourself as creative and therefore dismiss that being creative is a possibility for you. That means that you may not be able to capitalize on another amazing form of self-care. That is the way that you choose to take care of yourself. My amazing woman in the middle, creativity isn't only about making art. It's also about making space for yourself to try a variety of new things that help you be more creative. You will have to think differently about yourself to do this. This can be challenging in midlife when so much energy has been spent, caring for others and managing all kinds of stuff, all kinds of responsibilities, and dealing with all that life throws at you at this stage in age. We didn't even talk about menopause and energy and, all the things. It's so hard for so many of us not to be productive, to not think that what we're doing is actually productive. And sometimes that's how creativity can feel. But reconnecting with creativity is a powerful way to slow down, be present, and rediscover joy. That's why giving yourself permission is such a big deal. And if you've ever worked with me, you know that I have a wand. And sometimes I give you permission over a Zoom call because we have so much built up about what we should do and what we can't do. That's why giving yourself permission is such a big deal. I hear it a lot. Now, there's a big potential regret out there too in the land of aging and growing older. It actually made me cry when I first read about it. It's both simple and complex. It's when you don't allow yourself to be happy. It's when you get in your own way. It's when you sense that you know that doing whatever it is will add to your life, but you don't give yourself permission to pursue it or invite it in. Do you follow? In my world, I like to talk about this as how to regret-proof your life. That means taking action to do, think, or say things that help you reduce the likelihood of having regrets. And desires I hear about over and over are related to being more creative. So what's the block? Well, it's often your thinking. And specifically, it's a thought that you're not creative. So let's talk about this for a minute and take a look at busting this myth about not being creative. As I mentioned, this is a common midlife mindset. You might have thoughts like this: I'm just not creative. I'm not the creative type. I haven't done that in years since I was young, back in school. Or this doozy: I'm not artistic. It all comes together and it all gets mushed around, but those are very common thoughts. So, knowing that so many amazing midlife gals like this, like you, might think this, it just breaks my heart because I know it's not true. What's really happening is that you think thoughts like these, perhaps you've been thinking them for decades, and you just believe them. So many define creativity in one very narrow way, having to do with art. I'm inviting you to reframe creativity. Let's look at a definition. Creativity is defined as the tendency to generate or recognize ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining ourselves and others. Notice, not a single mention of art. Creativity is not necessarily about talent either. Rather, it's about expression, presence, and connection to yourself. So think about this. Verywellmind.com, this website, identified 5 common traits of creative people, and they include being high energy, disciplined, imaginative, passionate, and sensitive. Again, no specific mention of art or being artistic. So what tends to happen is when you label yourself as not being creative, you close the doors and limit yourself in so many ways. Art is only one way you can apply and express yourself in a creative way. Some creative pursuits you may be familiar with would be things like this: journaling, doodling, gardening, decorating your home, like even rearranging your furniture, playing, editing a video, photography, painting, playing music, painting even designs on your nails, like it doesn't even have to be paint on a canvas. Landscaping your fish tank. That's something we do. It could be landscaping your garden. Applying makeup, planting an outdoor pot or an urn, doing research, writing a blog, making cards, making jewelry, and the list goes on. As well as painting with watercolors, acrylics, or oils, doing encaustic art, making a collage, and other traditional types of things that you might call art. So one of the messages I want to share today is that it's not only artists that deserve the title of being creative. Creativity is about solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining yourself. So get your head around that for a minute or two. Now we're going to add a little bit more to think about. I believe that creativity can be another tool in your tool belt when it comes to self-care. In my book, 50 Ways to Celebrate Life After 50, I defined self-care as providing care for yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. So you can see it's broader than the way you might commonly think of it, which is probably about doing small, occasional nice things for yourself, like maybe finding time to have lunch with a friend or book a massage. These things are important, but they aren't all that there is when it comes to self-care. Self-care is also intentional. It's you taking care of yourself to improve your overall well-being on purpose. I also think that self-care adds to your life. It adds to your life, and you're usually happier as a result. It can fill you up. Now let's keep going here and open up to the idea that taking time to prioritize being creative can actually be a way to take care of yourself. So think about it. When you're doing creative things like solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining yourself, with something artistic or some other way to be creative, think about how you're showing up. You're very much in the present moment, which means that you're out of your good old autopilot way of functioning and probably more into a peaceful state of some sort. Some people call this being in flow. Are you familiar with that term? I love Wikipedia's definition of flow. Flow is the melting together of action and consciousness, the state of finding balance between a skill and how challenging that task is. This flow state kind of turns down the noise on your brain. It's a state that can also help you understand your feelings in a nonverbal way just by being present and focused on what you're doing and thinking. It clears up the static. That's how I think of it. And you may momentarily have less on your mind that distracts you so you can connect with your feelings more. The other thing is that it can give your brain a little bit of a break, which means that you may not be overthinking with multitasking or getting all weird about perfectionism. And I say that with love. I feel calmer just thinking about it, actually. This really describes how I feel when I'm gardening. So I don't know about you. I love gardening. I'm in it and I'm enjoying it. I'm giving the time and focus to myself, and it is so needed. I'm looking at tiny bugs and little roots. I'm looking at all kinds of little things that show up in the garden. It feels super nurturing to allow myself time like this to take it all in. I also feel this way when I'm creating a vision board and cutting things out, or when I'm creating with watercolor and mindful doodling. I go to the same place. It feels like a gift or kind of like a warm hug of time and attention to myself. So I like to think of creativity as a way of slowing down and tuning into yourself. What's going on with you, your mind, and your body. And it's a way to be present, to create, rather than focusing on creating something perfect. It's more about the doing than the finishing. I think this is a great way to take care of yourself. So as I'm talking to you about this, what's coming up? Are you worried about starting something new? Does it feel really indulgent to slow down like this and focus like this? Is it that you don't know where to start? Do you feel weird about maybe being a beginner if you are trying something new? Or if you're doing something that you like to do you feel guilty because you're taking that kind of time? Maybe you feel uncomfortable putting yourself first in terms of spending that amount of time and perhaps money this way on yourself, on doing something you love that gets you into that state of flow. Well, I have to say, you are absolutely not alone. I mentioned that women in my community share these types of thoughts, so I am quite familiar with them. One idea that may help is to play more. Now, what comes up for you when you think about that? Playing more. You could start something new and make an investment in yourself, or you could play with something new or play with something old again. If you don't have to commit to the thing that you pick, and if you don't have to be perfect, and the only goals are experimenting, playing, having fun, and giving yourself a bit of self-care, why not play? It's a great thing to be curious about if you have any resistance to any of the ideas we're talking about today. Really think about it. If you take away being perfect and you take away having to have a longer-term commitment to the thing, why wouldn't you play? Okay, now let's talk about what happens when you actually start playing again. So you get over the hump and you're ready to go. What do you think will happen? Well, when I think about it, my first image is a big smile. It's like inviting lightness and fun into my life. And I have to say, there are some surprise benefits. First, you may notice some energy, some maybe reignited kinds of energy. Perhaps you'll feel motivated to lean into new things with curiosity. You might also feel a little bit of a confidence boost, like feel really solid about stepping in to a new direction. And then once you're more open to being more playful with ideas and trying new things, you will likely rediscover some old passions, or maybe even uncover some new ones. One thing that comes to mind for me was when I finally took an art course. I finally took a class. It was about 13 or 14 years ago. I'd wanted to take some kind of an art class forever and never did. So I finally did. It was encaustic painting, which is also known as hot wax painting. So I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I thought it was really unusual when I discovered it. I saw someone's work and it really caught my eye because the thing I was looking at incorporated photography too. Encaustic work is a form of painting that involves heated wax, like I said. So pigments are added to it. So it's not all the same color. It doesn't all look white or like beeswax, but there are pigments added to it. And there are different types of wax. So you heat the wax. I used a griddle in the art studio I was in, and then you paint with it, usually on wood. I did it with photography too, because I love photography. So there's a way that you can work with images. And unfortunately, though, it's not something that many can do at home because it needs a lot of special ventilation. You may recall I have a bird, and it's not good for humans either without all this special ventilation. So it's something that I was only able to do in a special studio that was able to handle it. Anyway, somewhere along the line, when I was taking these classes, I met another gal in the studio who was doing Zentangle, a form of mindful doodling. And as soon as I saw what she was doing, I was smitten. It was ink, paper, and doodling, all of my favorite things. I've been doodling since I was very, very young. And you may also know I discovered calligraphy when I was 12, and that was the first art form that I really practiced and worked on. And what do you know, I gave myself permission to re-engage with calligraphy and bought new pens. And then a few years later, I became a certified Zentangle teacher and have incorporated Zentangle, the Zentangle method, into my Women in the Middle Academy. And it all started by saying yes to playing with wax. So it might be bold, but I really do believe that creativity can be kind of a gateway to clarity in midlife transitions. It can open the door. I've seen it time and time again. It's kind of a sneak attack on your brain. It helps you slow down and get into flow. It helps you focus. It doesn't have to be art, but it takes you deeper and helps you think differently. And it helps you take care of yourself and give you what you need at this time in your life. One of the members of the Women in the Middle Academy shared this about how she applied this concept while she was in the group. She said, "I've had so many successes since joining the group. I agree with Susie that having a mind shift into anything is possible has been a huge motivator for me to do things." So what's so great about her experience is that she was able to apply all of this to her life in general, her business, and also the way she allowed herself to go all in on creating a sewing room for herself. So she really just leaned into that and had so much fun. She amplified it. Another big win came from a member who never thought she was creative. It was the way she labeled herself, and she didn't question it. But bigger than that was the shift to try things. So she changed that mentality to try things. She tried crochet, writing a book, and starting a podcast, just to name 3 things. And she'd realized she'd been wrong about herself. She is a creative person and had been all along. She just had to change the narrative and think about herself differently. So these kinds of transformations just are so exciting because there is so much available to you. There is so much possible, and it all starts with your thinking. So speaking of thinking, what are you thinking? Are you ready to use some creativity as self-care yourself? Here are some tools that can work. You're going to have to experiment and play with them, though, to see what works best for you. A super easy way to start is with coloring books, adult coloring books. You can find them on Amazon or your favorite bookstore, and I would suggest getting a couple different kinds of books. You know, some have more finer designs, some are bigger, there are different topics. Like, it really depends on what kind of thing you're attracted to, what you have the patience for, right? But experiment with a few books and also with what you color with. So crayons might be fun. Remember how much fun the sharpener was on the back and how they just smelled so good? Speaking of smell, how about smelly markers? I remember those as a kid, and I just looked it up, and Mr. Sketch still makes those scented markers. Or colored pencils, whatever you like. Another tip is to pull something out that you used to do to relax or have fun with. You can even go into the Wayback Machine to find something good. So what comes to mind for me is I used to have a wood burning tool. I used to do string art and, of course, calligraphy. Vision boards and making collages are fun too. What about journaling? You can buy a fun new notebook and have fun writing or writing and doodling. Or even scrapbooking. You could do all the things. But with journaling, you can add more to it if you want to make it more colorful or practice in different ways of being creative. And then, if you're ready to play even more, think about something new that you might want to try. Maybe you really want to get into watercolor or acrylic paint, or learn how to knit, or maybe make pottery. There are online and in-person courses and even YouTube classes that are easy to find. There are a gazillion ideas. I know a few people who've gotten into mushroom hunting in the woods and others who have experimented with pressed flowers, paint pouring, making miniatures, starting a flower farm, and making jewelry, just to name a few. Now, just a quick reminder to focus on being super present. To get the most out of this experience, focus on how it feels, not how it looks. Try to avoid being judgmental and just enjoy for the sake of doing the thing. Really think about that. The minute you're in self-judgment, you are not in the present moment. So remember, it doesn't have to be good enough to do something with. Like, I really think about that sometimes and have to watch it. It doesn't have to be good enough to be gifted to somebody or to sell, right? You don't have to think that way. Just have fun making the thing or doing the thing. And this really was a big lesson for me over the last couple of years. I never understood art notebooks. Do you have art notebooks? I never understood them. I was always thinking, well, why would you waste time making something really good in a notebook when it could be something better than that and you could frame it and display it or give it away? Like, it really felt to me that you had to do something with it, and it was a waste of time. I totally didn't get it until I started to play with mindful doodling and later watercolors with doodling. I love the combination of ink and watercolor. And then I started to get it. Now I have tons of journals filled with some good stuff and some not as good stuff, and my judgment is gone. It has been fascinating for me to watch that personal transformation in myself. Now, this all ties into my approach with midlife transformation coaching. When you're stuck, it's so easy to stay stuck and not see your way out. Creativity is another way to help you get unstuck. My clients often start by feeling stuck or unclear, and one of the ways we break through that is to start introducing new stimuli. It's imperative. It's so important to shift out of autopilot thinking and doing, something we all love. So offering prompts and examples, peer coaching, exercises, and activities like mindful doodling are all ways to give you new opportunities to think differently and also to think about how you're thinking. So you want to think differently, and you also want to think about the process of thinking. Creativity acts as a tool to help you grow, and it's also a tool for self-care. One of the things I always repeat is curiosity and compassion for the win. And creativity is the perfect way to do this. It helps you explore what's under the surface of your busy, distracted brain so that you can reconnect with joy and purpose. Allowing yourself this gentle, loving, and playful approach to your growth is an incredible act of compassion at this point in your life. I think you can also see the connection way more now too, about how clarity and confidence can come from simple acts of curiosity and creativity. It really is all related, but you have to open the door and let it in. You have to be intentional and allow it in your life. Here are a few things to think about. What thought could you think that would help you be open to being more creative? How about these ideas? I'm learning that I might be more creative than I think. I'm open to the idea that creativity is the kind of self-care I love. I love the idea of taking care of myself by being more creative. I'm learning to slow down and appreciate being in the moment. I'm getting better at imperfection. Now notice how each thought makes you feel. Trying on new thoughts like these can be kind of like trying on a dress. You have to see what is a good fit. Now, you want to feel in such a way that you're able to lean in to being more creative while doing your thing, whatever thing it is. Your thoughts can help you or get in your way. It's so good to know how to help yourself like this, right? Once you get a better handle on your thinking and emotions, then you can try asking yourself this: what's one creative thing you could try this week just for fun? You can totally become a woman who's inviting more creativity and self-care into her life now and also in your next chapter. And I can help you. This is exactly what we're up to in my Women in the Middle Academy. So if you'd like to see if working together is a good fit for you, head over to www.talktosusie.com and book your free momentum call. This is the way to learn more about how the Academy can help you go from stuck to fulfilled using creative tools, mindset coaching, and joyful planning. I have to say, I think doing creativity on purpose is a very good thing for your heart, mind, body, and soul. Okay, that's it for this episode. As you know, my focus as your midlife coach is to help you waste less time spinning and feeling stuck. This is what regret-proofing your life is all about. Remember, being the queen of your brain domain is the best way to be, and midlife transformation coaching is the fastest way to rediscover joy and purpose after 50. For show notes and links, go to www.susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and look for episode 404. You'll also see a link there for my new show, The Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, which is all about the reality of running your business when you're a midlife gal. It's also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the places. Let's do this, ladies. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.